Welcome back to the Power Suite podcast. We are here for another big week of college football and a special week because this week we are brought to you by our unofficial sponsor, Woo Energy Drink, or as I like to call it, Woo Juice, Rick Flair's energy drink, which Robbie has been nice enough to supply me with. And I'll tell you right now, I'm excited to drink a mushroom blend elixir. So thank you, Robbie.
You really?
Yeah.
Hey, I had to buy 6 of them in order to meet Ric Flair. So I had 5 of them still sitting in the garage because I tried the first one and didn't really care for it. So there's still 5 more sitting here, and Chris said he wanted to try one. So
I was
going
to say it was pretty telling that you how much you enjoyed it because you still had 5 left.
Yeah, and I didn't even.
And they were sitting in the garage.
Oh man, let's see what this is made of. 6 grams of carbohydrates, 120 micrograms of vitamin B12, sodium, 70 milligrams of potassium, taurine, 150 milligrams of caffeine. So I'm going to be bouncing off the walls, I think.
I'm sure your wife will love that.
If you don't like it, learn to love it. That's not a great slogan.
That's one of his actual catchphrases from when he was a wrestler. But
for a drink, it's like if you don't like it, just keep trying it. Eventually, you'll love it.
That's probably what he's hoping. And the last time I went to the same store that I actually met him at, they had a full display of those, and there was about a couple hundred cans. So they're trying their hardest to sell them, but I don't think many people are buying them, especially if you don't get the chance to meet Ric Flair.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and try this. I'm excited. I'm nervous a little bit.
Yeah, for the mushroom elixir.
Yeah, special mushroom blend. I've never thought of mushrooms as an ingredient into a drink.
Why did you pick that one, Robbie?
What's that?
Why did you pick that flavor?
No, they're all
actually
mushroom.
Strawberry banana. But
okay.
There was blue raspberry, strawberry banana, and I don't know what the other one was like. I don't know, maybe grape or something. No, they all say mushroom elixir, and the blue raspberry did not taste like blue raspberry. I'll tell you that much.
So I'm excited. I wish this was more like psychedelic mushrooms, but I'll live with it just being an elixir. I don't know what that even means. Sounds like something that has water. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and crack this open and give it a taste. And as we're going, we'll get started here. Last week, rough day for the podcast. Jim 1-2, Robbie 1-2, me 0-3. A little frustrated because all 3 of my games I lost were by 1 possession, including a half-point loss with Auburn. As I take my first sip of Woo Juice. Woo! That was a terrible woo, and
oh yeah,
I got to admit, it's a little better than I expected. I thought it was going to be way worse, so I'm able to live with it. But I can down this. All right. So rough day on the podcast, but we're here to bounce back. Robbie, you're going to lead it off, and we need winners. You're only 1 game behind me and Jim right now for the lead. Me and Jim are now tied. So go ahead and give us your first side, and you have the best record on sides, 9-7 on the year. So get us started.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Big 12 for my first one here. Going to go with a team we actually used on the late phones last week. Didn't pan out. We're going to go with Oklahoma. They're traveling to Kansas to face the Jayhawks. Right now the line is Oklahoma by 10. Last week, Oklahoma was over a 2-touchdown favorite. I believe it was 17 and a half. And they got out to a good start against Central Florida, but missed a couple field goals, allowed Central Florida to get back in the game. And after the first couple possessions, it looked like they never really had a chance to cover. They were lucky enough to even win the game. But I'm looking for them to bounce back here. After a close call last week, they were off a bye, still off that big win against Texas. So maybe they were still feeling themselves a little bit. But the Oklahoma offense is putting up nearly 500 yards a game and over 40 points per game, led by quarterback Dylan Gabriel, who's hitting 71% of his passes still with a 19-3 ratio on the season. And Kansas's pass defense isn't exactly spectacular. They're currently ranked number 89 in our pass D rankings. And they are giving up in the last 4 weeks 297 yards per game and 65% completions. In fact, against Central Florida, Kansas only gave up 169 pass, but against BYU, they gave up 357. At Texas, they gave up 325. And in their last game against Oklahoma State, they gave up 336. So 3 of their last 4 games, they've allowed over 325 passing yards. I would expect Oklahoma to have their way passing the ball here, and they do have one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Kansas' defense overall, while they've been improved at times, against the better competition of late, they've really struggled. Gave up 661 to Texas, gave up 554 to Oklahoma State. Their last 3 games, they've given up 336, 202, and 218 rushing yards. Now, the Sooners haven't had a consistent rushing attack all season, but with a team that's struggling to stop the run, I would expect not only Oklahoma to do well through the air, but they'll also test out that ground game, get it going. Oklahoma's defense overall performing a lot better, holding teams to just 119 rush yards per game, 3.4, and their defense is holding teams overall to 66 yards per game under their season average, which is number 29 in the FBS. And in our rankings, Oklahoma has the big edge on defense, number 31 versus number 91. And the line's 10. I think Oklahoma can take this game by over 2 touchdowns. I think after last week's close call against a less talented Central Florida team, I think the Sooners are going to be back focused, still undefeated, still a great shot at the Big 12 title game and the playoffs, everything to play for. Kansas is still likely going to be without their star quarterback, Jalen Daniels. So give me the Sooners here by at least 2 touchdowns, if not more.
Yeah, and looking at who Kansas beat, it's really nobody spectacular. BYU and UCF are probably their best wins.
They only beat Nevada by 7. So yeah, they beat Central Florida pretty handily, but yeah, that BYU game was a bit deceiving. Only put up 351 yards, and yeah, they only beat Nevada by 7 points. So not exactly. They haven't beaten really much anyone of note. No.
All right, Jim. Let's get you involved. And 1-2 last week, 7-9 on your sides. But you've been storming up. You've been the one moving up lately. So lead us off. Give us your first side.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank Virginia last week for pulling the outright upset. That was pretty amazing. I know I said on the podcast I didn't think they'd do it, but damn, they did. So thank you for that. I'm going to stay in the Big 12, and I'm going to go with Iowa State minus 2.5 over Baylor.
Woo!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Iowa State is off a bye. Baylor is just 1-4 straight up and ATS this year at home, and their only win is over FCS Long Island. Both of their last games were wins over Cincinnati. Iowa State won 30-10 with a 364 to 214 yard edge. Baylor won 32-29 despite being outgained 450 to 396. And in that game, Baylor benefited from, they went up 10-7, kicked off. Cincinnati fumbled the kickoff. Baylor returned it for a touchdown. All of a sudden, it was a 17-7 game. And Cincinnati was driving at their own 42, kind of a questionable missed pass interference call, and they ended up being stopped on downs with 1:25 left at midfield. So
don't forget one of my sides last week is Cincinnati, so I'm a little bitter about that one. That was one of the few close calls I had.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But the other thing is Baylor's quarterbacks had a couple of 300-yard games, but now he's facing our number 4 pass efficiency D. Iowa State is only allowed 10 touchdowns and has 12 interceptions in the season. The other thing is Iowa State, though they have a young quarterback, they've only allowed 4 sacks and 214 pass attempts, which really helps. And the quarterback, he has a 12-5 ratio, and that includes 8-2 in conference play. and he did have 348 yards and a 3.0 ratio versus Oklahoma State. For the season, Iowa State's holding foes 61 yards per game under their season average. Their offense is 1 yard under the opposing foe's season average. Baylor's holding opponents 6 yards under their season average, and they're actually -7 on offense. So Iowa State has the advantage there, and I just think that they go on the road here. They've got 4 wins. They kind of need this win. They have games after this of Kansas at BYU, where BYU is very tough at home, Texas and Kansas State. So they need to win this game and then steal one to make a bowl.
Yeah, it would be a big win for Iowa State here. And, coming into the season with all the gambling issues they had, it really looked like a throwaway season, but Matt Campbell's done a great job. Off topic, Jim. Quick pick, South Dakota versus South Dakota State in the FCS.
Still got to lead with South Dakota State.
Yeah, Jackrabbits are a machine, man. But very exciting game if you are into the FCS, if you follow it, if you get our small college plays, which haven't been as good as they were last year, admittedly. But, there's plenty of season left, and we're only a couple games below 500 in those. But I do think that we can get on a roll, and that is a huge game. South Dakota State, 1 versus 4 at 2 o'clock if you get ESPN Plus. Definitely check that out if you can. Speaking of, actually, South Dakota's quarterback, Aiden Bauman, former Iowa State transfer. So a little FBS flavor mixed into that game. All right. I'm going to start in the Big Ten, something I don't normally do, but my good buddy Stu, Al Studer from the Robin Stu Show, put me onto this yesterday, and I'm kind of stealing it from him. But Stu, I got to give you credit for this. He's a Sparty guy all the way. When he says Sparty's bad, they're really bad. And he called it last week. He said take Michigan, and it was an absolute blowout. Michigan crushed Michigan State 49-0. This week, after a 5-game losing streak to head to Minnesota off the win against Iowa. Granted, and I'm not going to complain about it too much. We did have a late phone play on that game, and we got kind of robbed by the fair catch signal debacle where Iowa returned a punt for a touchdown, and then it was called back because of an invalid fair catch signal, which cost us a late phone play. So, that win a little bit deceiving, but Minnesota did have a 239 to 127 yard edge in the game. They did play Michigan the week before. They were only minus 263 yards, whereas Michigan State was minus 287, but that was an even more lopsided game than Minnesota had. But, Minnesota, they have a little more talent than Michigan State. This team is a little more put together. Kalakamanis, nightmare name to say, but he's a decent quarterback when he plays a not great defense. And Michigan State's defense isn't great; they're serviceable, but the teams they've shut down, Iowa, Rutgers, not anywhere near competent offenses. Minnesota has a competent offense. They have a very good running back in Darius Taylor, who came back last week. He has almost 600 yards rushing on the season. I just think you're asking Minnesota, who needs a win at home, who still has a chance to win their division right now, and they're 4-3 in the season. You're asking them to win by a touchdown at home against a Michigan State team who, as we go deeper into the season, these guys are going to have less and less reason to come and play. And I just think that it's getting to the point where it might be quitting time for Michigan State. You might see some of these kids pack it in mentally if they already haven't. I think that Minnesota really just needs to keep rolling, needs to, get a little confidence going into these last few games, because, that game against Wisconsin at the end of the year really could be for that division title. And they're winning games when they need to. They beat Nebraska and Louisiana early in the year. They also had a win against Eastern Michigan. Not the most convincing team, but they play good defense. They're going to be able to limit a Michigan State offense, which is abysmal lately. 12 points a game in the last 4 games and just 290 yards a game. I think Minnesota's a little better than that. Last 4 weeks, Minnesota's put up 23 points a game. Also, they do have a little bit of a series edge. Minnesota having covered the last 3, and 8 of the last 9 they've actually covered in this series. So I like the Gophers here, -7 at home. I think they'll win this game by 10 to 14 points. So yeah, Minnesota -7 at home against Michigan State. Thank you, Al, for the heads up on this play, and definitely listen to the Rob and Stu show. You can check that out on Twitter at Rob and Stu STU, and you'll see my face on there as well. All right, let's go to the round 2. Jim, you're going to a team that came through for you last week.
Are we going with Robbie?
Oh yeah, Robbie. Sorry, Robbie's first. Sorry, I put him in out of order in the second round. So
That's okay.
Robbie, you're up first for the
It's
second.
that mushroom blend already getting to your head.
Woo! Man, my voice is shot right now. So
Your woos are horrible today.
I know,
Gee.
I know. I'll get a better one next time.
Okay. We expect better of you.
Yeah.
Well, at least we know that. I mean, he hasn't like passed out or anything too crazy's happened. So.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you know what?
true.
I had that meeting this morning with our middle school wrestlers, and I talked for 2.5 hours. So it kind of shot my voice today.
And you're a man who doesn't like to talk a lot or use a lot of words, so that definitely had to be tough for you.
Yeah. Never my thing, but got to do it sometimes.
Anyways, I'll move on to my second pick here. I'm gonna go back to the Big 12 again. Pretty Big 12 heavy this week for me. Gonna go with a team that's again gonna go with a bigger favorite here. This is a team I actually used last week. They gave me my one and only winner on the podcast. Gonna go back to the Kansas State Wildcats here. They are a 17.5-point favorite at home against Houston. Another one of the newcomers to the Big 12. Those newcomers, as I mentioned last week, haven't gotten off to a great start in Big 12 play. And Houston did give Texas a game. They actually outgained Texas, but that was at home. And their last second Hail Mary win was against West Virginia at home. But the two common opponents in the Big 12 that these two teams have faced are TCU and Texas Tech. Kansas State beat TCU 41-3 last week with a 587 to 300 yard edge, and they beat Texas Tech the week prior 38-21. Were +3 turnovers in the game despite getting outgained by 45 yards. So they won by 38-17. Houston, on the other hand, lost at home to TCU 36-13. They were outgained by 298 yards. And then they lost on the road at Texas Tech 49-28. They did actually have the yards edge in that game, but a couple of special teams touchdowns turned things around there for Texas Tech. And Kansas State at home, pretty tough to beat in conference play. They're on an 8-1 ATS run as a home favorite in Big 12 play. Last week, Kansas State, they were kind of having a little bit of a quarterback. I wouldn't call it a controversy, but both quarterbacks have been playing well. And Will Howard and true freshman Avery Johnson, they actually played both of them. Both of them actually started the game. Both were on the field for the first play. And they combined for 244 pass yards and 135 rush yards. So both of them can throw the ball well. Both of them have shown the ability to run the ball as well, too. Both are bigger quarterbacks, physical. Overall, Kansas State's running game has been spectacular in conference play. They're running for 279 yards per game, 6.3 yards per carry. And they're facing a Houston defense here that is ranked number 94 currently in our rankings. They're giving up 468 yards per game in conference play. In conference play as well, Houston is -83 yards per game, while Kansas State is +83 yards per game. Their run defense has been so-so this season. Houston's has. They're giving up 196, 4.6 in conference play, but they have given up 239 to Texas Tech, 250 to TCU. So they've struggled against some of the better rushing attacks, and Kansas State probably has the best rushing attack in the Big 12, at least statistically. And I expect Kansas State to run the ball all over Houston. Houston isn't the most disciplined team. Dana Holgerson tends to wear his emotions on his sleeve, and sometimes I think that affects his team as well. Whereas Chris Kleiman for Kansas State's more level-headed. This is a noon kickoff, so it's not nighttime in Manhattan, but I would still expect a pretty good crowd on hand. Kansas State fans are pretty loud, and this is a tough place to play. So give me Kansas State, even though the line is 17.5. Give me Kansas State. I see them winning this game by over 3 scores, kind of in dominant fashion like they did last week.
Yeah, give me Chris Kleiman against Ernie McCracken any day. If this was bowling, I'll take McCracken, but this is football. Give me Kleiman and his disciplined team versus Holgerson's goofball hair and style.
It all starts with the hair. That's where it just
exactly. All right, Jim. Now it's your turn. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Go take another sip of your drink. I'm waiting for the woo.
Is that better?
No, that was horrible.
Jeez.
My voice is cracking.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to listen. They're
okay. You should apologize.
Probably just woke someone up that was falling asleep at the wheel.
There you go.
Jake over
All
here.
right.
He's not falling asleep right now. That's for sure.
I am going to go back with Virginia again. Virginia is plus 19 versus Miami of Florida. And the interesting thing here is you think, oh, Virginia off the big win, first time beating a ranked team on the road. And you go, oh, well, they'll be over. But Miami's off their first win over Clemson since 2010. Well, they don't play them every year. That is, they had lost 4 straight to Clemson. So they're kind of high on the hill also coming into this game. And when you look at the series history of this game, I just want to go back to the last 5 games. Virginia has covered 5 of the last 6, but they've all been close games. Last year, Virginia lost 14-12, despite a 327 to 272 yard edge. 21, Virginia won 30-28 with a 449 to 322 yard edge. In 20, Virginia lost 19-14 and, did get outgained a bit there. But in 19, they lost 17-9, despite a 326 to 265 yard edge. And in 18, they won 16-3 with a 439 to 358 yard edge. Last year, Virginia was played Miami off the upset of Georgia Tech, which was head coach Elliott's first ACC win, and they only lost by 2. And when you look at their common opponent, North Carolina, Miami lost 41-31, being outgained 508 to 481, and Virginia won 31-27. Only being outgained 490 to 436. 3 of Virginia's losses this year were by 1 point to James Madison, who's kicking butt and taking names in the Sun Belt. They only lost to NC State by 3, and they only lost to BC by 3. They're getting 19 points here. They should be able to keep this game close. Miami's not going to be, surprised by them. They're not going to look past them. But still, I think that's just too many points for Miami to be given a talented team that, really showed last week that they can play.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen all year. Virginia, I said it last week when you gave the play out. I said Virginia is a better team than people realized. And it's true. They hadn't won any games. That's why people were down on them, and that they had a lot of things they had to work through, obviously, since last year. And they're kind of a fun story to root for too. So I don't mind rooting for them. And that wasn't a fluky win. They beat North Carolina straight up. They outplayed them. It was a very close game. It could have gone either way, but there was nothing fluky about it. So yeah, I think that.
But they were never in danger of not covering that game.
No, and Miami is another team like North Carolina who is known for not covering when they're a big favorite. They did it against Georgia Tech earlier this year, and they're just a tricky team to figure out. So 19 points is a lot of points for them to give in a conference game, especially when they are coming off an upset of their own. A big upset without their starting quarterback. So, Van Dyke is probably going to be back this week, but I think 19 points is a lot of points. All right. I'm going to go, and this is hard for me to say. I don't usually do it. I'm going to go to the Pac-12. But this is a very good conference this year with quite a few good teams. I really like Utah when they're at home, and especially when they're an underdog. They're a 6.5-point dog against Oregon. And I'll tell you what, the Utes, when they play at home, they're a different team. Plus 16 points a game at home this year. And they've played some tough teams at home. They played UCLA. That's a pretty good team. They played Florida. That's a pretty good team. Oregon, not as good on the road. They had the loss to Washington. They had an 8-point win against Texas Tech, which, as Robbie would tell you, having followed Texas Tech, that was a game that Texas Tech easily could have won. I think Oregon was losing that game late, if I'm correct.
They were only up one. They got a late pick six to actually get the cover, win 38-30.
Yeah, they were actually down 30-28 in the fourth quarter after Texas Tech hit the field goal with 5:13 left. So they didn't actually take the lead until 1:10 left. So that was easily a game, the Texas Tech could have won. But, yeah, so I know Bo Nix is a heck of a quarterback, 19-1 ratio. And the whole Bo Nix on the road thing has kind of gone by the wayside. That was an Auburn thing. He has played much better on the road since he came to Oregon. But this Utah defense is for real. They're allowing 295 yards a game. They get after the quarterback with 25 sacks this year. They're holding opponents 112 yards per game below their average. That's number 3 in the country. And I just like when they're playing at home, they play much better, allowing 243 yards a game at home versus 366 on the road. I think this is a great spot for them, almost getting a touchdown. If you can buy that up a half point, get it to 7, I'd like that even more. But, just to be on the safe side. But, the 6.5 I'm comfortable with too, because I think this is a one-score game. Last year, Utah lost by 3, but that was at Oregon. And, the whole Cam Rising thing, it's done with. Now you are no longer waiting for Cam Rising to come back. They've officially, to use the baseball term, shut him down for the season. They're going with the two-headed monster of Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson. Actually, it's pretty much Bryson Barnes at this point. He did throw for 3 touchdowns, and they just upset USC on the road. So I definitely think, that Utah looks like a team that's rising up in 6-1 in the season, plus 6.5 at home. I'll take the Utes getting the points here. All right, on to our totals. And tell you what, Robbie, you're going to lead it off, and the jinx on your totals has got to end eventually. Let's hope it's this week.
Yeah, man, something's got to give eventually, right? That would be pretty damn impressive if I went the entire season and win a title.
Law of regression, you have to win one of them, right?
You would surely like to think. So we're going to hope this is the week that ends it here. Going to go to the Sun Belt and go with Old Dominion and James Madison to go under 49. I think this number's a bit high just considering how good James Madison's been on the defensive side of the ball. They're holding Sun Belt foes to 296 yards per game, 15 points per game. James Madison's pass rush has also been spectacular. They have 34 sacks on the season, led by defensive end Jalen Green, who has 13 sacks and would actually have the FBS lead right now. But unfortunately, the FBS has that silly little thing where if you can't, because James Madison's still transitioning, this is their second year, the stats don't officially count. So I know that's upset Signetti very much so. But they have a very good pass rush going up against an Old Dominion offensive line that's giving up, they've given up 37 sacks, which is 21.5%. So basically 1 out of every 5 times Old Dominion drops back to pass this season, it results in a sack. That's how bad their offensive line's been. Old Dominion's gotten a little better. They're 4-3 actually, just upset App State last week. They've been doing it a lot on the ground. They're averaging 212 rush yards per game and 6 yards a carry in conference play. However, I don't think they're going to be able to get anywhere near that. James Madison's run D again, would be number one right now in the FBS. They're only allowing 36 yards per game rushing, 1.2 yards per carry, and they've yet to allow a team to top 100 yards on the ground in a single game. Old Dominion, on the other hand, their defense isn't bad. They're only giving up 372 yards per game, and James Madison's offense in conference play is only putting up 364. They're not really blowing teams out, putting up 40, 50 points. James Madison's going to shut you down and win like 27-10, 31-3. They won last week at Marshall 20-9, didn't give up an offensive touchdown. This meeting last year was 37-3. That's kind of where I see this game at. I don't think Old Dominion gets many points. I see like 30-7, 27-7, something like that. I think, and with this total being at 49 right now, I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna go under that because I don't see James Madison scoring more than 27, 30 points, and I don't think James Madison gives up more than 7 to 10 points. So I see this game probably finishing around high 30s. Right around 40, so I would call for this game to go under 49.
All right, and I'll tell you what, Rick Flair says that you are breaking this streak.
Well, if Rick Flair says it, then it's definitely happening.
Yeah, Rick Flair juice into that total. Jim, give us your best total.
My best total right now is going to be Vandy and Mississippi over 63.5. Last year, this Mississippi won 52-28. 80 points, and they combined for 994 yards of offense. Coming into this season, or right now, Vandy, their games are averaging 62 points per game. They're putting up 27, giving up 35. Mississippi is averaging 63 points per game, putting up 40, giving up 23. Vandy this year is 7-0-1 to the over, including 5 straight overs. Mississippi is 3-1 to the over at home this year. Mississippi's offense, they've put up 73 versus Mercer, 48 versus Georgia Tech, and 55 versus LSU. Vandy did put up 47 versus Alabama A&M, 37 UNLV, and 35 versus Hawaii. So they both have good offenses. But Vandy's also allowed 40 points to UNLV, 45 to Kentucky, 38 to Florida, and 37 to Georgia. Mississippi's given up, and this is the kind of interesting thing, versus FBS foes, Mississippi has given up at least 20 points per game and did give up 49 to LSU. So, it's kind of a consistent number, but they're still giving up at least 20 points per game in FBS games. And I just think that this should be a nice, high-scoring game.
Yeah, definitely. Vanderbilt's offense actually not bad, but their defense is atrocious. And Ole Miss obviously could score with Lane Kiffin against bad defenses. He likes that really.
And they should be able to take advantage of Vandy's poor defense.
Yeah. All right. And my total, I will give you Clemson and NC State under 44. And, it's a little bit of a low total. Clemson's got a heck of a defense, though. Offensively, they're still a work in progress. Cade Klubnik has not been the star quarterback. He's not terrible, but he's not the star quarterback that they had with, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Running the ball, they haven't been as effective as they have in the past. Only ran for 31 yards against Miami last week, gave up 5 sacks. NC State, again, another team that's a little inconsistent on the offensive side of the ball, averaging 25 points a game. They're being held 26 yards per game under their opponent's defensive average. MJ Moore stepped in starting quarterback, and in his first start, they scored 48 points and had 401 yards against Marshall, but then they followed that up with 3 points and 305 yards against Duke. And I'll tell you, the problem for NC State ultimately is they just don't have those big explosive offensive players in the skill positions, and they struggle in those situations where they need big plays. I like NC State's defense to limit Clemson's offense, but I also like NC State's offense to struggle in this game. So I think under 44 is the call here: NC State versus Clemson, and that's the totals. And anything else you want to add, Robbie, as I finish up my Woo Juice, which I think actually contains, I'm reading the ingredients, a little bit of Rick Flair inside of it. I don't know if it's sweat or if it's some other body fluid, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some Ric Flair in this drink as I down it.
So what's your overall opinion of it?
Yeah.
Well, I will give it a
Passable?
five. 5 out of 10. Could we become like the Dave Portnoy is to pizza? Could we do that with energy drinks?
No.
I mean, we work so much during the football season. We need something to keep us awake. So maybe we can strike a deal with someone, or
yeah, we can rate the energy drinks. Like Portnoy does with pizza. We're gonna, I'm gonna give the sparkling mushroom elixir strawberry banana Woo Energy Ric Flair sip. I'm gonna give it a 5. It says improves energy and focus. So, I don't know about that. I'll have to kind of analyze how I'm like focusing. Actually, as I speak, I feel like I'm, my
floating on a cloud.
My heart rate elevated a little bit. My heart rate has gone from about, I'm wearing my Fitbit. It's gone from about 75 to 82 since I started drinking this. So, yeah. Hopefully my heart doesn't explode.
Let's hope not.
Some of the listeners are probably like, drink that, finish it if that's the case.
Yeah, especially like Keno King and Sassy Jim and
yeah, Sassy Jim's probably definitely. I don't know what happened to Keno King. Hopefully, I don't hate Keno King. He was mad. We lost a lot of plays. I don't blame him. So
trust me, we're just as mad too. But yeah, only thing I have to say is
Sassy Jim's. Here's the difference between Sassy Jim and Keno King. Keno King was a paying customer.
Yeah,
Sassy Jim just calls us on Sunday, and
okay,
yeah. So yeah,
does his thing. Yeah,
he's not a customer. He just somehow gets our plays and calls and reminds us that we didn't do well. Thank you.
Yep. Just remember, it's our October 5-star game of the month side this Saturday. Get on board for that, Chris. I know you're going to give out a promo code to save a little bit of money on that. We won our play last month. Looking forward to another big weekend and hopefully another 5-star winner for you guys. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, code is Virginia. That'll get you $10 off Power Sweep if you go to ncsports.com, or $20 off. Let me backtrack. $10 off Power Sweep or the game of the month. So if you want to get $10 off game of the month, the 5-star going this weekend, you can do that. Or if you want $20 off, call in 1-800-654-3448. $20 off any late phone package aside from the game of the month. So it's either $10 off the game of the month or $20 off, for instance, Top Play Trio, our exec package for the weekend, the Saturday and Sunday star rated plays. So either $10 off game of the month or $20 off any other package. Prices on the back of Power Sweep. So that'll be the deal. The code is Virginia. Jim, any parting words?
Just stay safe out there, and for anyone who's having those Halloween parties this week, don't drink too much.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about some costumes. And also, I hope some of you dress up as Ric Flair. Thank you, Ric Flair, for the energy and focus you've given me. And I'm going to keep sucking on these mushrooms.